starting the problem. 21, it says a jogger goes half a mile north and then turns. So if we are thinking about, this is our start point. This is where we are starting. And it says we're going north for half a mile. So 0.5 of a mile. And then we turn west. And we would assume that if we are turning west from north, that is a 90-degree angle. And if we are looking at this, and it doesn't matter if you drew yours going the other direction, if you had it going off to the right or to the left. And so as we take a look at this, it says then we stop, the jogger finishes, and they are 1.3 miles from the start. So if you are 1.3 from the start, and this is where you finish, the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. So when you take a look at this, by drawing it, you do not know how far you went west, but you do know that this is 1.3 miles. So now if we are setting up number 21 for our work, I would have a squared, which is my 0.5 squared, plus w squared is equal to 1.3 squared. So that as I am looking at your work, I should be able to see in number 21 that you set your question up in that way. Here's the key thing, that as I am looking at this, you definitely want to make sure you label your answer when you finish that. Tell me the Pythagorean theorem. Go, Keegan.
That's how you find the side of a triangle.
So what is the Pythagorean theorem? It is what? A squared?
Oh.
Plus b squared is equal to c squared. And if you were going to explain what it means, what would we say this means, Jacob?
Always the hypotenuse something.
Lucas.
It's a formula for finding the hypotenuse.
It is not the formula for just finding the hypotenuse. It is the formula that we use, and the formula says what? That the sum of what? The sum, this is our addition. What are we adding? The sum of the square of the legs, and there are 2 of them, thus the a squared plus b squared, the sum of the square of the legs is equal to the square of the what? The square of the hypotenuse. It does not tell us this is how you find the hypotenuse. But it does give us the information that if we have 2 sides of a right triangle, we can find the missing side. So the key thing, what kind of polygons does this work for, Sam? More specifically than just triangles, we want only right triangles. Only right triangles. It does not work for all triangles, and we're going to see that today when we look at what's called the converse of our Pythagorean theorem. Okay? Only right triangles, only if we have a right angle. So the Pythagorean states that if a triangle is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The converse is that if the sum of the square of the legs, that's the a squared plus b squared, equals c squared, the square of the hypotenuse, then it is a right triangle. So next year when you get into geometry, you get a lot of work with these if-then statements as you do proofs, and you talk about writing a conditional and the converse. The converse is any statement when it reverses the if and the then parts of a theorem. So in this case, our if a triangle is a right triangle, then this is the case. When you look at the converse, they just switch that around. Okay? So it says the converse of the theorem is useful in deciding if it is a right triangle. This is the key thing today when we look at your homework. I'm not only going to ask you if it is a right triangle, if it's equal, I will also be asking you to tell me if it is not, what kind of a triangle is it. So you will be asked if it is less than, you will be telling me if a squared plus b squared is less than c squared, you'll tell me it's an obtuse triangle. And if a squared plus b squared is greater than c squared, it will be an acute triangle. So today in your homework, you're going to be asked to tell if it's acute, right, or obtuse. So if you say no in your homework, that it is not one of those, what I'm going to be looking for is your work. So it is not just a yes-no question like the answers in the back. You want to make sure you have your work with it. So as we start on that next page, it says, use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem to determine whether the triangle is given with the given side length is a right triangle. So, again, some of you will, think that this is crazy that you should write the Pythagorean theorem down. And if you skip this step, that's fine. You would then go to the next step on your paper, but I do need to see 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to 10 squared. If I was going to do it for number 2, I would be looking at writing down what, Vanessa?
10 squared plus 12 squared equals 16 squared.
So, and what we are checking is 6 squared plus 8 squared equal 10 squared, and is 10 squared plus 12 squared equaling 16 squared. So in this first one, we don't need our calculators for this, right? 36 plus 64 gives us 100. And 10 squared is also 100. And so since 100 equals 100, the question is, we are going to say it is a right triangle. And because it's a right triangle, it's going to say explain. And the explanation is because 6 squared plus 8 squared equals 10 squared, or 64 plus, we could also say because 64 plus 36 equals 100. So this work is kind of your explanation. So if you don't put the work down when you're answering the questions and you just say yes or no, I'm probably not going to give you credit for that.
Can the explanation just be 100 equals 100?
Nope, you'd want to point to one of these two for me. So if we're looking at that. So if I'm taking a look at this next one, please put this in your calculator. 10 squared plus 12 squared. And then put 16 squared in your calculator. So when you are the whole thing in your calculator, and then we are going to put down an obtuse triangle. And again, could you have put in 100 plus 144 to do this? Yes, but you can put that whole thing in your calculator. That next page down, if you would, please. Your notes. You want to tell me the type of triangle. So if we are starting it out, Emily, tell me how I'm going to set up that first one. 14.
Oh, 14 to the second.
Squared plus
17 to the second equals 23 to the second.
So what we're trying to check is if it equals 23rd to the second. That next one, if I'm taking a look at Abby, should be
22 squared plus 120 squared equals 122 squared.
okay. And the last one, Grace, if I'm looking at, should be
15 squared plus 70 squared equals 75.
so take out your calculator and figure these out. I'm going to be having you explain. I am okay that once you have this, that your explanation is showing this work, that this is what happened for your acute, your obtuse, and your right. That explanation is the work that you were telling me. So in the video we watched the other day, they talked about Pythagorean triples. So Pythagorean triples is a special name for a set of 3 positive integers. So they have to be integers, which means they have to be positive, A, B, and C. They cannot be a decimal or a fraction that form a right triangle. The most common one is 3, 4, 5. Most people in construction use 3, 4, 5 all the time. Because what they're going to do is they're going to measure out maybe 3 feet or 3 yards and 4 feet or 4 yards. And if this happens to be 5, they know they have a right angle. And whenever you're building anything, you always want to have a right angle if you're building houses or whatever you're building, so that it is nice and straight and level. So 3, 4, 5 are multiples of that, right? So that would be our 6, 8, 10 is going to be, or any multiple of that 3, 4, 5 is always going to be a Pythagorean triple. The other ones, 5, 12, 13 is a common one, 7, 24, 25. It says most right triangles do not have side lengths that are all integers, so triples are special numbers. So they listed 5 of the smallest Pythagorean triples. And again, Any multiple of these sides would also be a Pythagorean triple. So when we are taking a look, you are going to be asked, is it a Pythagorean triple, and to explain. The explanation is that it has to come out using that formula. So again, you could write down the a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but I am okay, Jacob, if you start us off and we put what?
12 squared.
12 squared plus
35 squared.
35 squared. And the question is it equal to 37 squared? So use your calculators, please, and type that in. Piper, if I'm looking at this triangle, how would I set it up to check if it's Pythagorean triple?
6 squared plus 24 squared is equal to 24 squared.
And we're trying to see. So please do those on your calculator right now.
Wait, so what? Sure.
So we are going to say, in that case, we're going to have yes, because 12 squared plus 35 squared equals 37 squared. That is a true statement. When we take a look at that next one, Hale, what did you have? Just put 6 squared plus 24 squared in your calculator. We know
612.
612. And 25 squared is?
625.
So since this is not equal for that part, again, if we're going to do our explanation, no, because 6 squared plus 24 squared is not equal to 25 squared. Okay?
Oh, so 25 is the hypotenuse of it, correct? Oh, snap.
That's it.
25. 25 is the longest side. Anytime you set up your Pythagorean triples or any of the numbers, the longest side must be by itself. So even if they just give you 3 numbers, the biggest side is always the number by itself. So you are taking a look at. So your homework, before we take a homework quiz, is number 23 through 38 all. When you are doing the problem, it says determine whether the side lengths make a right triangle.
No.
I need to see the work, like 2 numbers squared equals a third before you just put yes or no. When you take a look at this one, as you are looking at this picture, it says the swimmer, if you were looking at this, it says what is the distance between the swimmer's head and the lifeguard's head? So again, you are looking at this making a right triangle, okay? We are going to take a homework quiz right now.